video, we're going to talk more about radians, but this time we're going to look at how to convert an angle given in radians to degrees. So in the last video we did the opposite and we converted angles that were in degrees to radians. So this video is going to be very similar to the previous video. If you've watched that, you're going to notice it's very similar, except we're going to be doing the conversions the other way this time. So let's just start with the definition again of radians. So radians are an alternative way to measure angles. So they're just a numerical measure of an angle like degrees, but they're defined by the following rule, that pi radians is equal to 180 degrees. So everything else can be figured out relative to this rule. So for instance, if we divide each side here by pi, we get that 1 radian is equal to 180 divided by pi degrees. So now, because we're looking at how to convert radians to degrees, we're dividing by pi here. So we divided each side by pi. Pi divided by pi gave us 1 on the left, and 180 divided by pi on the right. And then we can times each side by x, where x is just some unknown quantity. And so we get x radians on the left hand side, because it's x times 1. So that's on the left hand side, and on the right hand side we get x times 180 over pi degrees. So this is telling us that a number, doesn't matter, it could be any number, some number x given in radians is equal to x times 180 over pi in degrees. So we can multiply any angle given in radians by pi over 180 to get the angle in degrees. Now if you watch the last video, this might hopefully make a lot of sense, because in the last video when we converted from degrees to radians, the conversion factor was pi over 180. Now we're converting back the other way, the conversion factor is 180 over pi, so we just flip it. So it's really easy to remember. If you've got something in degrees, you do pi over 180 times by pi over 180 to get radians. If you've got radians, times by 180 over pi. So flip the fraction over. So let's just quickly look at some examples. So again, you'll probably recognize these if you watched the last video. These are the angles we had in the last video, but they were given in degrees and we converted to radians to get them like this. Now we're going to show how to convert to degrees. So we want to convert pi over 6, pi over 3, pi over 12, and 3 pi over 20. We'll do a similar trick, and we'll notice that pi over 6, I mean, it's even easier this time. Pi over 6 is pi divided by 6. So pi is 180 degrees. If we divide it by 6, in degrees, that's just 180 divided by 6, which is 30. So pi over 6 radians is 30 degrees. Similarly, pi divided by 3, well, we just divided 180 by 3 to get that in degrees. So that's 60. 180 divided by 3 is 60. So pi over 3 radians is 60. Then we could do the same thing with 12, pi over 12, but we could note that pi over 12 is half of pi over 6. So pi over 6 divided by 2 would give us pi over 12. Now pi over 6 was 30 degrees, so if we divide that by 2, we get 15 degrees. So it is true that using 180 over pi as a conversion factor, so timesing by 180 over pi, would give us the correct answer. So if we times pi over 60 by 180 over pi, the pi's would cancel out, you'd get 180 divided by 6 and you'd get 30. But we didn't really need to use it, because we can just, by observation, if we look at the conversion of pi equals 180, we can use that to figure these first 3 out. But the fourth one, 3 pi over 20, looks a little more, well, it's not as neat a number. So for that one, we'll try using the conversion factor. So we've got 3 pi over 20 radians is 3 pi over 20 times 180 over pi degrees. Now, the pi's cancel out, so we get rid of the pi's and we get 3 times 180 over 20, but we cancel the zeros there as well. So we cancel the 0 on the 20 with the 0 on the 180, and we get 3 times 18 over 2 degrees. That equals 3 times 9, because we can just cancel a 2 in the 18 and a 2 on the bottom. We cancel a 2 in the 18, we're left with 9. So we get 3 times 9 degrees, which equals 27. You could have put that into a calculator if you'd wanted, but you can just do it by hand. And so we find that 3 pi over 20 radians is 27 degrees.